Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, absolutely crucial shift that's happening right now in global trade management. We're talking about the core philosophy and really the operational engine behind WZ52. Now, if you're in international trade, supply chains, or corporate risk, you already know the rulebook isn't just being rewritten, the entire game has changed. It's like trying to play modern 3D chess using the rules of checkers. But that's exactly what a lot of companies are still doing right now. We are officially moving away from the old days of simple, check-the-box compliance, and we're stepping firmly into the era of export intelligence.
Let's dive right into a simple, undeniable truth. The world's changed. And actually, scratch that, it didn't just change once. It is constantly changing. We're living in an era where technology just moves at breakneck speed, right? Innovations are being developed and distributed globally faster than ever before. At the same time, geopolitical risks, they aren't these abstract, slow-moving concepts anymore. They evolve weekly, sometimes literally daily. It used to be that the baseline of global trade was pretty static. You could set up your processes, put them on autopilot for a few years, and be fine. Well, that reality is completely gone. Today, the landscape is incredibly volatile, and falling behind the curve isn't just a minor administrative oops, it's a massive organizational risk.
Section 1. The changing global landscape, geopolitical risks, and modern threats. So this brings us to the central conflict facing trade compliance today. On one hand, we've got the reality of modern threats, diversion networks. Those illicit channels specifically built to bypass export controls and get restricted goods into the wrong hands. They have become incredibly sophisticated. They're using front companies, complex routing, highly advanced tactics to hide their true intentions. It's a dynamic, aggressive threat. On the other hand, how are most organizations actually trying to manage this? With outdated static tools, spreadsheets, PDFs, endless confusing email chains. Come on, you simply cannot combat a highly sophisticated global syndicate using an Excel spreadsheet that someone manually updated 3 months ago. The sheer complexity of these modern threats just completely outpaces the capacity of these manual siloed tools.
Section 2. Compliance is not enough. The critical shift from reactive to proactive.
Is this transaction compliant today? Well, for decades, that has been the golden question of trade compliance. And frankly, it perfectly represents the exact limitation of the old paradigm. Asking if a transaction is compliant today is entirely focused on the present moment. It's a binary check-the-box exercise. But in a landscape where geopolitical risks shift weekly and tech moves faster than ever, just checking the box for today's transaction, it's just no longer a sufficient defense. Because think about it, what happens when the geopolitical ground shifts right beneath your feet tomorrow?
The pivotal question we absolutely must ask instead is, what could happen tomorrow? This right here marks the hinge. This is the shift from reactive compliance to predictive export intelligence. Organizations critically need intelligence. We can't afford to just look at the paperwork sitting right in front of us anymore. We need to look over the horizon. We have to seamlessly assess the trajectory of a transaction, uncover the hidden layers of an end user, and anticipate the shifting geopolitical winds. Catching risks before they even materialize? That is the very definition of export intelligence, and for sure, it's the only viable way to stay secure in a rapidly changing world.
Section 3. Managing modern export risks. The extensive landscape of trade compliance. When we map out the core managed services provided by WZ52, well, we quickly see the modern compliance minefield. And let me tell you, it is a heavy burden. First, you've got product classification and export licensing. Basically the foundational elements of knowing exactly what your product is and where it's legally allowed to go. Then you have sanctions and embargoes, which as we just talked about, change constantly. But then we get into the really highly complex areas that require deep intelligence, end-use and end-user due diligence. Who is ultimately using your product, and what exactly are they using it for? Then there are catch-all assessments, and importantly, diversion risk analysis. Managing all of this effectively requires processing massive amounts of data and spotting hidden connections. Again, try managing this entire list using only PDFs and emails, and the whole system just quickly breaks down.
But it goes even further. This builds far beyond just day-to-day transactions right into structural support services. See, managing export controls isn't just about screening individual orders. It's about building a highly resilient organizational structure. This means developing robust internal compliance programs, conducting regular export control health checks to find critical vulnerabilities, hopefully before the regulators do, and even utilizing a fractional head of export controls to inject high-level strategic leadership into the organization. A healthy compliance ecosystem requires both that transactional vigilance and deeply rooted structural integrity.
Section 4. Inside the WZ52 platform, the engine powering modern export control.
So we are looking at a truly holistic ecosystem here. The WZ52 platform combines knowledge management, classification, and screening as its foundational layers. But notice how it securely connects those straight to deeper analytical tools, end-use intelligence, risk assessment, and license determination. The absolute most important piece of this whole puzzle, however, is that final element: AI-powered intelligence capabilities. Artificial intelligence is the connective tissue here. It's the engine that can actually analyze those evolving geopolitical risks, process complex diversion networks, and turn raw data from all these other areas into actionable, predictive intelligence. It masterfully transforms what is frankly an overwhelming amount of information into a clear, cohesive picture.
So, why does all this platform engineering actually matter? Well, for three key reasons: faster, better, and more defensible decisions. In modern global trade, business has to move incredibly fast. Technology is accelerating, and supply chains simply cannot afford unnecessary bottlenecks. But speed without accuracy, that's incredibly dangerous. By leveraging the AI-powered intelligence of the WZ52 platform, organizations can make decisions that are not only rapid but incredibly precise. And, critically, they are defensible. If a regulatory body suddenly audits your processes, you aren't pointing them to a static, outdated spreadsheet. No way. You are providing a comprehensive, intelligence-backed rationale for every single transaction.
Section 5, The Future is Intelligence, Reimagining the Compliance Function.
From compliance function to intelligence function, the future of export controls is definitively not compliance alone. Checking boxes and reacting to today's news is just no longer a viable strategy against sophisticated diversion networks and weekly geopolitical shifts. Organizations must evolve. They have to adopt the mindset and the technological engines required to ask, what could happen tomorrow? So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to consider about your own operations. Are you still running a reactive compliance function built on spreadsheets and hope? Or are you ready to evolve into a proactive, AI-powered intelligence function? The world has already changed. The real question is, have you? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.